Welcome out to the show tonight, guys. It's Studio 321. It's your host, Eddie B. So I know everybody's been watching the news lately, and Tulsi Gabbard has been all over the news talking about the Obama Russiagate stuff. You know, how basically now they're coming out with proof that Obama helped set up the whole Russiagate scam. Well, look, anybody with a brain knew that was all BS when it was happening, okay? But it did last for 4 years, and it costed us $40 million for that investigation, okay? And then now we're finding out it was all concocted by Obama. So if you look all over the internet, there's a lot of memes out of, Obama in a jumpsuit and all this talk of him going to prison and all this stuff. And look, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, don't get your hopes up, okay? It ain't going to happen. He ain't going to jail, okay? You can really forget about that. Now, look, I would love to see it happen. I've been saying for years and years that Obama is crooked. He always has been, okay? The only reason he got away with all this stuff is because he was the first black president. That's a fact. He's been overly protected. So whatever behavior he did behind closed doors, they let him get away with it, and they're not gonna put him in jail for it. Look, if they do, then I will truly believe that our government has changed, but it's not going to happen. The best that we're going to be able to hope for is maybe like one of his underlings, like a John Brennan. I don't think Comey's gonna, I don't think anything's gonna happen to Comey, but John Brennan, he might be in some trouble. That's the ex-head of the CIA. That guy was a creep the whole time. I read a bunch of stories on him. Yeah, he's a real shady character. They might be able to get him. But you got to remember, the president himself has such broad immunity for whatever they do. It is really hard to, put them in jail. Now I did hear some stuff today. Immunity for a president only covers what he does officially as the president, okay? But that's anything he does officially as the president. But I don't know if running an illegal operation like the Russiagate scam would be considered an official capacity. So, that's for the lawyers to pick apart. I don't know. I just can't imagine them ever putting him in jail. So if you're not going to put him in jail, what is the strategy behind this? And where's all this going? Because you got to remember something. Part of Trump's strategy and the guy is super intelligent. His whole team is super intelligent. Their strategy is always to come out with one thing but have another thing in mind. He's always playing angles, and that's what makes him so smart, and he's so unpredictable because, they come at you with one thing and they're actually working on something else, and then that comes out later. It's the sleight of hand trick. So what is the point of all this coming out now about Obama? I'm going to give you my opinion. This is what I think. Like I said, I don't think they're going to get him put in jail. I don't even think that's what they're actually trying to do. They're just going to let it float around out there and keep everybody hyped up, the idea of him going to jail and this and that. But I don't think that's their plan. You got to remember, political party wars are all about momentum, okay? They tried to, when the MAGA movement started, the Democrats, they really tried to crush Trump in every way possible, right? I mean, we saw it for impeachments, arrests, all this stuff, raiding his house. I mean, you name it, arresting his supporters, arresting his lawyers. They did all this crazy stuff, right? That was really all to crush the movement. They were trying to stop the MAGA movement. But the truth is, it's too big. It's too popular. And the reason why is because it's right. You know what I mean? It's what Americans want. So you couldn't stop that movement, even when they tried. And that's what's happening now, okay? The Republicans know that they have the Democrats on the ropes big time. The Democrats don't have any leaders. Think about this, right? The last two tacticians in that party that were super smart, in my mind, and I hate them both, but you got to give them credit, is Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And Nancy Pelosi is about to retire. She's done. You barely see her out anymore. That means she's on her way out. And I believe Chuck Schumer is as well. He might end up retiring next year. And to me, that's the last two smart Democrats left. They were very tactical in the way they did things, very sneaky. Like I said, I hate them both. I've watched them for years play their crazy games. But I feel like they're the last two smart ones, actively in the government on the Democrat side. And when Chuck Schumer goes, I think Nancy Pelosi is going to go first. Once Chuck Schumer goes, I think it's over for them. Now you're going to have all radicals in there. Nobody telling them to calm down and don't say this, don't say that. You're going to have a bunch of AOCs, Jasmine Crockett's running around, running their mouth as loud as they can, which, look, it gets attention, but when you really get down to the nuts and bolts, it gets nothing done in the party. It doesn't. It really hurts them. It attracts a lot of attention, gets a lot of noise, and a lot of people think that equates to votes, but it really doesn't when everything you're saying is a bunch of hot air. So, when Nancy Pelosi and Schumer are gone, I feel like that's the end of the Democrat Party. However, getting back to Obama, he is the still, I guess, I don't want to say de facto, but he's still in the background, and everybody looks to him as the leader of that party. Okay, if anybody had any slight chance of resurrecting that party, it would probably be him. They would, people would follow him. They're looking for a leader right now. You know what I mean? They're looking all over the place. The Mangami guy from New York, he's too much of a radical, and they've already, he's basically a communist. They were starting to embrace him a little bit, but it's not going to work out. They're starting to see the poll numbers on him aren't that great, so they're gonna move away from him quickly. Tim Walz, he said he's not running in 28 because he's finally realized that nobody's going to support him. And look, Trump again is a genius. They called him Tampon Tim the whole time because they put the tampons in the boys' bathroom in Minnesota, and I'm telling you, that is what destroyed Tim Walz. That and the fact that he's just a weirdo. But so he's out. He realized that nobody's going to vote for him. He's not going to run in 28. So the only person that could put that party back together, I think, at this point, is Obama. Now, he can't run again. He can't do anything like that, but he could still be the catalyst to save that party, okay? And that's why they're politically trying to crush him right now. They're going to finish him off with this stuff. Because if they can discredit Obama, because look, again, he's not going to jail. You can forget about that. But if they can crush his reputation and crush his legacy as the leader of that party, it'll get to a certain point where they won't even want to bring his name up anymore. It's kind of like where Joe Biden is right now. Nobody wants to talk about Joe Biden in that party because it just brings up bad news. And that's what they're going to try to do, that to Obama's name. Okay? And look, I'm all for it. The guy deserves it. I've been following him, since he ran way back. I've always said Obama is a white liberal woman in a black man's body. That's the way I see him. Everything he says is a lie. He says one thing and he does another. He's done, irreparable cultural damage to our country. He's turned men into sissies. Like I could go on for hours about the guy, but I'm not. But the point is, now they're focusing the guns on him to destroy his reputation and his legacy, which will be the final crushing blow to the Democrat Party, because without him, there's no catalyst to bring it all back together. And the Republicans know that. And now is the time, because they're so weak and so pathetic that they just have nothing. They have no, I watch this stuff regularly. I'm constantly looking for, who's their next person going to be? Who's their next big person going to be? I can't find one. I literally can't find one. It's amazing. I've never seen anything like this in my lifetime. But hey, look, they did it to themselves. You know what I mean? You got to realize in politics, it's just like a football team. Even if you're winning, you still got to replenish the bench, right? You got to get new guys coming in, new faces, new superstars on the way up, so that when the old superstars move out, you got a new superstar right behind them. But the Democrats didn't do that, okay? They let the lefties take over, and they're on a dead-end path right now. They don't have any superstars on the bench. Nobody. The mouthy ones that everybody knows, AOC, Jasmine Crockett, all them, nobody respects them. They just listen to them run their mouth. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's a weird situation, but I think that they understand that now is the time to strike at Obama's legacy, and they're going to do it. And I from what I've seen so far, it's working, and they've got some real evidence coming out, and they're going to let this all hang out. So keep your eyes open. You might want to stay tuned for the next couple weeks because it's going to get ugly. But I'll keep you guys updated if I find out anything new. Anyways, guys, have a good night. This is Eddie from Studio 321. I'll talk to you soon.